Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Certified Forgotten. This is an off week or an on week, depending on your taste, which means we are spending 30 minutes, not 60 minutes, talking about a somewhat recent release. Yeah, that's correct. It sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but I know I'm right. If this is your first episode of Certified Forgotten, as a reminder, every other week, we release a 60-minute episode with a special guest where we talk about a film with 10 or fewer reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Every other week, it's just my friend Matt Donato and I riffing on a newish horror release that sort of captures the spirit of good shit that probably doesn't get seen as much as it should. And we have our wonderful tagline about Certified Forgotten, which is that some films are certified fresh, some films are certified rotten. Our films are certified forgotten. There it is. I did it. I got it. It was perfect the first time. How are you doing, Matt?
Doing okay. Sorry, I was looking up I got curious when you said our tagline, and these uncertified episodes do not have a review limit like our main show.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious though where Infested sat at because it played festivals, it definitely got attention, but it went to Shudder, and you'd actually be surprised that even some of the buzzier Shudder titles still have a pretty low Rotten Tomatoes amount, I guess I would say. But
Yeah.
there's a solid 63 critic
I was gonna
reviews
guess
here.
60. I was gonna guess
Yeah,
60. I was spot on.
solid 63 here. So I'm glad that a lot of critics took time for Infested because it deserves the time, as we'll get into, but obviously disagree on, maybe.
Yeah, this might. So the purpose of Uncertified is to talk about movies that one of us loves. Ideally, both of us love, which is the eczema one that we did a few weeks ago was a great example of a movie that both of us love. This one, maybe it's just a showcase for Donato talking about his fucking spider movies. I don't know. But before we get started, let's do a quick plot synopsis for Infested. Written and directed by French director Sébastien Vanicek, Infested is a French language horror film about a spider infestation in the Parisian suburbs. Caleb, a loner with an affinity for exotic animals, is thrilled to wrangle a rare breed of spider from a local shop owner. But when the spider gets loose in Caleb's building, the body count quickly rises as spider webs pop up around every corner. If Caleb and his sister are to stay alive, they'll need to battle both spiders and the police to escape their building untouched. That is Infested. It's available for streaming now on Shudder. This is a movie we knew we were going to talk about on Certified for a little while because, Donato, this is one of your favorite horror movies of the year.
See, very much indeed. I think a little backstory is fun here because Sebastian is directing one of the two announced Evil Dead movies to come. Ghostlight is taking the approach I very much hope of giving different filmmakers with different styles and sensibilities a crack at Evil Dead, and we have two in production right now. One of them is from the Infested director, and it's funny to me because I was at Fantastic Fest. I believe. How did you do that much Fantastic Fest? What was your?
No, not that, not last year, or it was last year, right? Not last
Yeah,
year. I was traveling a little bit, and so I think I did like 4 films on the back half.
that's what I remembered. But yeah, so I was there one night, and I know somebody at Ghost House. I've met them a few times now, traveling to festivals and become friendly. And it's just so funny to see this person when they get out of a movie and immediately go like, "I need to go talk to this filmmaker." Um, and literally, like the two filmmakers that came out as the next Evil Dead directors, both Fantastic Fest alumni. And I just think that's like a cool little thing that Infested was so good to somebody and they were in that audience that they literally ran back to their boss who happened to be Sam Raimi and was like, yeah, this is the next Evil Dead person. Like that's just so cool. I love seeing that shit happen in real time, and like Fantastic Fest is such a microcosm of horror fandom and what a unique little film festival it has become. Obviously not without its issues, but in its current iteration, I
Yeah.
am very happy with it. And yeah, to see like the magic happen, to see it like unfold in front of you it's a beautiful thing. It's really great.
Without going too much in the Fantastic Fest piece, I think one of the things that makes that festival special is that everybody is there for horror, right? And Fantastic Fest program stuff that isn't just horror. Some of the best, I would say thrillers or like uncomfortable movies, just generally uncomfortable movies of the year have come out in Fantastic Fest. But any horror film festival in general kind of benefits from the fact that everybody's there to find the best of a certain type of thing. And so any one movie can stand out over the course of a weekend or over the course of a week because people are there to find good horror. They're not looking, you're not going to have people that are like, oh, I don't want it. This is a good movie, but it's sci-fi and I'm not into it or whatever, right? Like good horror is good horror. And I do remember that you were extremely excited about this movie for a very, very long time.
I think excited is an overreach for my initial thoughts
Hmm.
because I fucking hate spiders. I
Yes.
am not arachnophobic where I will be paralytically frozen if I see one. I am the one that still has to take care of them in the apartment as it stands. But I do not like spiders in my movies, especially like big old hairy ones and stuff like that. I will avoid spiders if they are the main plot of a movie. I didn't see arachnophobia until 31, 32 years old. So that
Hmm.
was actually rather frequently. Or sorry, recently.
Yeah.
But that said, I love a creature feature. And I think that's what it boils down to. I love an all-out animal attack creature feature kind of vibe. And as much as I might have avoided arachnophobia, I ended up loving it. I love eight-legged freaks. Go down the list. Like I keep saying I am afraid of this thing and try to avoid it, but it ends up being something that I enjoy at the end of it. So Infested came with apprehension, a little paranoia and anxiety. And I started watching it kind of with like the blanket or pillow close to my eyes. And excitement came later because while I'm gonna say like Infested is right up there with arachnophobia in spider centric horror. Like it's that terrifying to me. It's that in your
Mm-hmm.
face. It does not shy away from a lot of spiders used, but it's done so well that you can't really ignore it. Like the to me the craftsmanship and whether that's using the real, I think it was Huntsman spiders. There's something like 200 spiders used on the set, but also the digital ones as they get bigger and nastier. It just all looks so good, and that's why it killed me. Like it killed me because I'm like I am uncomfortable. This is legitimately scary to me, but at the same time it is artfully done. Holy shit, like this is really crushing it out of the park. This isn't a fake spider. This isn't uh the Sting came out 2 weeks prior, and that's about a giant spider in a New York apartment complex, and it looks like something out of the 80s. It's something
Yeah.
rubber and mechanical or very ickly CGI that I can rationalize. I can sit with that and go, okay, I can live with this. As a kid, like the Jumanji spiders fucked me up so much because they looked real to
Oh
me.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Those got me. So I got right back in Jumanji mode with this movie, and I'm just going, oh boy, like there's practical and digital, and they both look good, and I can't really tell them apart. Oh fuck. So, oh man, it just hits all the quadrants I want in a horror movie where it is thrilling, it is darkly comedic at points, the effects are great, and the kills make you squirm. Like it just hits them all.
So you would describe it as a 4-quadrant movie, provided that your 4 quadrants also happen to be Matt Donato's 4
Yeah,
quadrants.
the Matt Donato horror movie specific 4 quadrants, especially for creature features. I'm trying to get
Correct.
that title patented. Having some issues.
But if the team from Infested wants to quote you as saying a 4-quadrant horror film, then I think
Absolutely,
they can do that.
absolutely.
So when I saw this, I referred to it, and I'm going to use a good pun because a good pun should never go unwasted. I referred to this as Iraq the Block because it is a spider movie that takes place in an apartment block, and it uses, much like Attack the Block did, it uses its the specificity of its location, I think, in really good ways. Um, Talk a little bit about that for you, kind of like and especially within the context of Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise and blah blah blah. What does the setting of having this taking place in an apartment block add to this story for you as somebody who really loves this movie?
Well, it 100%. That is the pun. I think that's the best title pun for it that I saw. Iraq the Block, because immediately my reaction, I didn't go to the pun, but I said, I'm like, it's basically Attack the Block meets Record, except there's no
Yeah, yeah,
zombies, there's spiders.
yeah.
So it is a quarantine film. It is a socially it is a socially cognizant film where it is trying to make a point, and I don't know if that point gets across 100% by the end in the best way possible. I think possibly the idea of this movie being called Infested, which was originally called Vermin, and the director did speak out and say, I titled it Vermin because to me, the spiders and the people living in the low income housing are one and the same in a way. Like they
Yeah.
both are being driven out in different ways. Obviously the spiders are a threat, so they are being driven out for being different, but like they didn't want to be there, they just got brought in there, like they're just trying to make do with what they have.
Yeah,
And
it's they're going for a parasite duality in the title,
right,
which is very, yeah, very well done by them.
exactly. But yeah, so like you do have to think about that because this is it's low income French housing. It is definitely very attack the block in a sense of these are people who are already in, let's say, lesser means, and we get to know the people in the complex and understand that like they have to maybe sell shoes on the black market or deal drugs, stuff like that. Like these are the kind of characters you're sitting with. um and how they come together is again a obviously odd way of putting it, because for most of the movie it is spiders just murdering everyone. There
Right.
is no there's no mercy, there's no, let's say, unification where the spiders are like, oh shit, we're both like we both don't belong here and we're both forced in our situations because society is pushing us out of the way, basically. That doesn't happen
Well, there's a
until the end.
shared, I was gonna say
Well, I was
there's
gonna
a
say,
shared disregard
yeah,
towards the popo, correct.
exactly. Until the end, the police come in and you're going, "Oh, so they're just keeping these people locked in there." Go again back to rec because that's the easier solution here. And sure, if these people die, it doesn't matter. We'll kill the spiders. That's fine, but like it's not about saving these people. Like it's just
Right.
about getting the job done. So I think with that commentary, like it does come into play pretty well. I think it comes across, at least, when I saw it and when it ended. I think the moment of goofy fucking moment where the spider looks at our main character and they both have the like, get out of here, bro, we got this, and like the spiders continue killing the cops, like, okay, I that may be a little much, but at the same time, I, I go back to that movie Sting I was referencing, which tries to do the exact same but way worse, where the characters are just stereotypes. They try to recreate a Brooklyn apartment complex with all of like the overseas stereotypes you've seen before, and it doesn't go really well. It's just basically a slaughterfest of minority characters, and I don't think it ever gets across the melting pot of New York City. It's just
Mm.
caricatures used because caricatures work, and what ends up happening is that the white hero gets away and all the other minorities are dead. And to me, I think having that comparison point very closely made Infested look that much better, because for whatever bar it achieves with social commentary, Sting missed. So kind of oof, it missed in a way that I was watching and I just couldn't ignore. It was distracting. So I already had that coming in and I was like, oh, like Infested cleared the bar 3 times over. So it maybe that inflated my appreciation a little bit.
Well, you bring up a good point, which is the layering of social commentary and horror in this film, right? Like it is, there are films that lead from a point of message and narrative and class consciousness and what have you. And that's totally fine. There's some really, really great horror films that like the text is class dynamics, racial dynamics, etc., and the subtext is horror. I would say the more successful route, unless you're a very, very sure-handed filmmaker, the more successful route is to invert that. It is to have your primary thing that you're doing be a plus creature feature, an A plus slasher, an A plus whatever you're trying to do, and then let the subtext, let your social commentary work at a subtextual level, and kind of talk about, like you said, the relationship between society and how they view the spiders, society and how they view the tenants, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's something Infested does really well. Is it says, we have some stuff we want to say about class dynamics, about race dynamics, but that's not going to be the text. That's going to be the subtext. The text is going to be spiders, spiders, spiders. It's going to be incredibly grotesque hallway shots. It's going to be like all this other stuff it sets up. And I think that that speaks to an understanding of how best to balance genre films is how to get, how to get that piece just right. Again, there are great films. Like, I think Jordan Peele is a great filmmaker who leads from a place of commentary and balances it perfectly with horror, but those two things are a perfect marriage between the two of them. A lot of the films that I do find myself gravitating towards are the ones that lead with horror and follow with commentary and find that balance where it's just right. Like, it's a creature feature that's going to like kind of poke you a little bit in the back with some sort of commentary, with some sort of class commentary, and that works really well for me. So that's a point in Infested's favor. I think that Sébastien Vanicek has a good understanding of how to balance message and movie. And I think Infested does a really good job of that.
So, if I remember correctly, though, I thought I read your blurb on Infested and your letterbox blurb to be specific. And I
Blurb.
thought you took issue with the commentary. I thought that's where it lost you.
No, so the all right. So the
I'm
idea
pulling it
that
back. I'm pulling it back
pull
because
back up, pull back up. You can read it. You can interrupt me at any point and read it if you want. I don't have a problem with it. Again, like, I don't have an issue with the balance of, um, horror first, commentary second, and the police stuff is both ridiculous, but also like whatever. It's 2024. I get it. The problem for me is that only works in a film like Infested if the characters have weight and stakes. And where this movie lost me, and lost me fucking hard, is the body count piece, is the fact that they are creating backstories for characters, or attempting to create relationships for characters where like the surrogate mother figure dies horribly off camera. The best friend unresolved, like, will they reunite after years of a misunderstanding, like, dies badly with no resolution. Like, all of these characters are sort of killed off in ways that are working in contrast to the emotional beats, the character beats that the film is trying to have. And that to me made everything else work much less. So I like, when I talk about what the movie is doing in a vacuum in terms of layering horror and commentary, I think it gets that balance just right. But for me as a viewer, I need my character stuff to drive all of it. And I was frankly kind of pissed off at the amount of death this movie does without giving it any real weight. I think I talked about the fact that like death has no meaning in this movie, but not in a way that felt to me like commentary. It was just like characters die in order for characters to die. And that's frustrating. That's not something that everybody's going to feel. There's going to be a lot of people that watch this movie and don't think, "Oh my gosh, like this is out of whack." But for me as a viewer, I was deeply disappointed by how many characters die with very little regard to what has happened before, like how their relationships to the main characters have mattered in the past, or what it means for those characters going forward. Characters dead, they're forgotten about for the rest of the movie. It's fine. It's a horror film. A lot of horror films do that, but I wanted it to do better. I wanted it to be better, and I had a hard time with it because of that.
I think that where I did not lose as much faith in the movie, I think, versus like obviously your reaction, that's exactly what you said. I found your letterbox, and halfway in, I realized the reason I was so annoyed with the film is that it places no consistent value on human life. And I mean, like, yeah, like that
Yep.
is what you just described. But to me, the lead character, Caleb, he is retreated and he is investing in his little exotic zoo, and he's not dealing with reality. And what happens to all these people is because of him. Like, he's the one that brings the spider in. He's the one that fucks this all up. He's the one that gets these people killed instead of just having a conversation or being the person that maybe he should have been prior to that. And I think that actually adds like a layer of tragedy to the entire film. It is already horrific. It is already violent, as you said. Some of those deaths are, I think, the one off camera, like you just said, it's still such a viscerally appalling after effect, because that's the character whose head starts twitching around. You hear those noises, and a
Yeah.
spider is going to crawl right out of her mouth, and it does. The horror elements are so strong in this. All of the shadows of spiders just coming down and us seeing that, or the spiders getting bigger and more brutal, and how quickly they move and how like forceful their attacks are where they lunge and stuff like that, or just the spiders erupting out of people like after laying babies
Mm-hmm.
in them, the whole alien aspect of it. Like, there is so much to be afraid of and so much of all of this. And maybe like where my like darker sensibilities take over is forcing Caleb to watch all of this happen, knowing that he brought this to his block, like knowing that he brought this to his community. And again, I don't think it's a clean commentary. I don't think it's amazingly well done, let's say, but for me, that adds something. That adds something that is deeply dreadful and awful. And if he just talked to the friend, when we find out what the friends weren't talking, like if he just broke that barrier, when we find out other things about characters, like there's something there that I also like about this movie, and I agree. Like I agree, it's a huge body count. I agree that some people are thrown on screen just to be fodder, but that's kind of this movie's MO. At the end of the day, it does want to slaughter. It does want to do all these things that I think other creature features maybe fail to do as well.
And there are two questions that I think this movie calls into play for me. One of which is, when I watch a horror film, there needs to be an element, or maybe I'm looking for an element of, does the punishment fit the crime, right? If a group of teenagers hits somebody with their car driving down the road drunk at 70 miles an hour and then throws their body off a cliff, like everything that happens after that is kind of fucking fair game because they're bad people. Uh, in a movie like this, where a character is lonely and brings home a spider, there is an element of that to me is like, well, I don't know if the punishment fits the crimes. And part of that too is, it's glib to say that death mattering or not mattering is a hard thing to articulate, but something when you see it. I'll use the Supreme Court definition of pornography. I can't describe it, but I know it when I see it. The difference between a death not mattering and a death mattering because it doesn't matter is that is a fucking hair's breadth of a line, right? Like you and I can both rattle off the top of our head movies where a character's death doesn't matter, and it matters so much that character's death doesn't matter. And I think that this is a movie that is a little bit more opaque in terms of hitting that boundary just right. I think there's a lot of people that are going to watch it and say every one of those deaths has weight and means something to the community, and the way they do it is intentional in what the police and the surrounding community do or don't do for them. But for me, it's one of those things where it's a tough thing to say that I think the deaths don't matter, but I don't think it matters that the deaths don't matter, instead of it does matter. And that's part of the fun, right? Like I did not like this movie, although I admired a lot about it, but my read on it is so narrow. Like the things that I don't like about it are so subjective, and the things that I do like about it are so objective, that me not loving it is going to be absolutely cause for somebody else to go seek it out and be like, this is for me. This is 100% my shit.
Yeah, and I think that's case in point me. Um, Being a full throttle creature feature and doing it in the way that it does, I can look over, or not look over, but I can forgive some of those shorter, slighter storytelling elements, because what is achieved elsewhere is above, like it's above and beyond. I talk about shark movies all the time, and I talk about
Yeah.
how independent shark cinema is such a downer these days because everyone just wants to make a shark movie. Like they don't think about how, they don't think about why. They just know that the people love their sharkies, they love their fin flicks, and they have to deliver one. And if they do, maybe they'll break even or make a profit. And that has delivered some of the most embarrassing depictions of sharks on screen I have seen in so long. It People don't have the money to do it right. They don't have the means to do it right. They don't take care of the characters, to your point, where
Sure.
these people are just dying one by one because they happen to be on a fucking ski-doo and it breaks down in the middle of the water. Like it is, these movies are becoming more ridiculous. They are becoming harder to sell, and they are becoming worse and worse until Under Paris. I say that because I think spider movies are in the same vein. I have seen a ton of spider movies that can't pull off the effects that they want to, but they try anyway, and that's what makes them not as good. Think of anything you might see on sci-fi.
Mm.
There's one example that's an outlier called Arachnid, I believe, and it is a practical arachnid, and it looks damn scary. Some kind of alien arachnid combination, we'll say. And what Infested does so goddamn right, and it brings you back to like The Shallows as a shark comparison. The Shallows is all digital, but that shark looks effing good. The tension is through the roof,
Yep.
and it is fierce. It's ferocious. That is Infested. All the spiders look damn good. They take the time to do everything right. They take the right budget, they're given the right backing to be like, hey, I can make a terrifying spider-centric horror movie, but I need the means to do it. And that is what happens here. You get all out. You get the blown out version where unfortunately other studios would opt for, let's say, unclean effects and these things that have become more commonplace now in the lower budget horror era that we're in, where spend less on horror because it's always going to make money. Well, when you spend more on horror and you get artists who have the, let's say, time and capabilities to do something like Infested, that's what sets this movie leagues above the competition. Like this is upper echelon of not only of not only spider-centric horror movies, but creature features in general that I have seen of late. Like this one is towards the top. It gets like I felt icky and like there were things touching me like the entire movie. Like a freaking brush on my shoulder or something would have me just shivering. It does everything that a creature feature should, and it does it really damn well.
Yeah, I can't help but compare this to was it Stung, the movie that played at the Tribeca Horror Film
Yeah,
Festival,
the
and like
Wasp.
yeah, the Wasp
Yeah,
movie, right?
Stung,
Like
absolutely.
Stung is silly and not particularly, I don't remember it being particularly great, though obviously I remember it, so that it did something right. But you're absolutely right. Like this movie is operating with a level of competence and a such a strong understanding of the balance between practical and digital, and like understanding how you create like action fueled horror set pieces. There's a scene in this movie which is basically a group of characters that have to go down a spider infested hallway, find out that they're at a dead end and have to go back, and that is a wildly visceral, like skin crawling, like watching at home, and kind of like every time a puff of air hits an arm hair the wrong way, like you're slapping at your arm for the next 3 minutes. It's really great at that, and I 100% understand why Sébastien Vanicek would be tapped for an Evil Dead, because it is like it's visceral. You feel it. It creates so much out of nothing, and it's so easy, in the same way that a lot of shark movies are like, oh, it's a shark movie and you feel like you know what that means. This is a spider movie and you feel like you know what that means, but I promise that you don't. It's just really really good production design, really really good creature effects. It's definitely the kind of movie where you find the person in your life who's the most afraid of spiders, and then you make them watch it without telling them what it's about, just to be a fucking asshole about it.
The cinematography at points is so good, of just letting the spiders creep onto camera. Like there are the
Mm-hmm.
times where they're all out attack mode, when they are super quick, super agile, and that shit'll get you. But it's the shot, I believe Caleb and somebody else are in a van in the back, and it's one of those vans with two doors and there's windows, and like the windows are broken out and these giant ass spiders now are trying to come in, and you just see the legs come in first, and
Yeah.
like it's so well done. And I keep harping on that, but it's so rare that a horror film dedicated to spiders hits all the quadrants. Not to like say that again, but like it hits on everything. Not only give me the kills, give me the spooky, but also give me beautiful cinematography, give me great production design, give me a cast that is going all out and like really invested in their roles. I do love some of the characters there, that like the intensity they bring and the panic on their face. It like you can't fake that.
Yeah.
It's real. Like all that stuff hits. I don't want to repeat myself, but I keep doing it. It hits on a level well above creature features I've seen of late. It's doing things better, not different, just better.
It's putting in the work. Normally, we would end an episode of Uncertified by talking about whether this is a Monocle movie, a Donato movie, or both. I think we fucking established that over the course of this
Me,
conversation. It's all Donato all the
Infested is
time.
mine.
So, Donato, to wrap us up, how do folks follow you online? How do they see what you might be working on?
At Donatobomb, DonatoBomb. Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram, also the Tiki Talkie and the Blue Sky. But I will say what I am doing. I will be in some Blu-rays coming out. I will be on many websites as usual. It's more the same, but keep them busy.
As for myself, you can follow me on just Blue Sky. Just search for Matt Monagle. There I am. Please, if you haven't already, visit certifiedforgotten.com. Sign up for our podcast. Follow us on Instagram, on Slasher, on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever you want to follow us on. No matter how you find us, no matter how you share us, it's going to make us a little bit stronger tomorrow than it did today. and we appreciate that. Thank you so much.